Hey guys, what's going on? In this one, we're talking about what do Swedish people think of Julian Assange? That's coming up. Hey guys, welcome to my channel where I talk about what it's like living in Sweden as an American, and I comment on things on news and things like that. If you like that type of content, don't forget to like this video. And if you're new to the channel, I would love if you would consider subscribing. Let's get into it. I just found this one interesting because I was following the news and I was kind of shocked that the Ecuadorian embassy got fed up with Julian Assange over time, not wanting him to use the internet and certain things. And he was in the Ecuadorian embassy in the UK for many, many years. But at the same time, he was accused of sex crimes in Sweden, and Sweden for the longest time was actually trying to take him and arrest him as well. And on top of that, the United States was trying to grab them. Now, as a child growing up in the United States during the Iraq War, I was very gung-ho about the Iraq War because I was upset about 9/11, and I trusted that the Bush administration was telling the truth about weapons of mass destruction. Whether they believed it or not, I was about that. And over time, and especially when the WikiLeaks documents started to come out, what Julian Assange really helped show that when he teamed up with Chelsea Manning was that sometimes the United States wasn't so careful when it came to collateral damage. There were videos that I'm not going to show here because I don't want to get demonetized, but would show, for example, maybe there's 15 people and one or two of them had a machine gun and they didn't know if everybody was innocent or not, and they would just take everybody out. Or a person, I remember walking by a building and they're going to bomb this building, but this guy's walking down the street, and rather than wait 1 or 2 minutes for him just to walk by, they go ahead and bomb the building with him right outside. Another one with a van where not everybody involved in the van maybe was guilty, but they just blasted the whole van. So it definitely changed the way and the perspective that wars was being fought. And I thought it was an important thing that he was showing and talking about documents. But it's interesting because if you compare Snowden to, for example, if you compare Julian Assange to Snowden, what's very interesting here is that I feel like you have like 50-50 Americans. Like you get half Americans that maybe don't like him, and then half that like them because they think it's important that they expose things about our government that can be better. But the United States government, for example, is not a fan of either one of these people and definitely wants to charge them. I think in the beginning, people liked Julian Assange that were Swedish and talked about it. Maybe he was never really like a hero, but he wasn't like an unliked guy. And I think it kind of went into the culture when you had the Pirate Bay and you had WikiLeaks. You know, I think that Sweden cares a lot, at least it did, about internet security, internet being like just being free on the internet is a big thing, I think, in Swedish society. And over time, though, I think when he was accused of the sexual crimes against, believe it was 2 women, it changed over time. And I think that Swedish people in general have just been exhausted by this news story. But by following the news and talking about this with a few Swedish people, my impression has been that Swedish people just don't care. I actually think that like Americans care a lot more about this issue, whether it's just because he wasn't really exposing so much about like the Swedish government. I just think that they are exhausted with this story in general, and they don't feel a lot of passion about it or have a lot of care about what happens to them. As far as like the Swedish government goes, I just think the Swedish government's allied with the United States, and because the United States wants to extradite him, we'll have to see what happens. Who's going to take him? Is Sweden going to take him? Is the UK going to take him? Or is the United States going to take him? We all know the United States wants to take him. If that happens, I mean, he could be in prison for the rest of his life. So I just find it to be interesting that he's more of a hero, I think, in the United States. I wouldn't say hero, because I think that's important. Like, I don't know everything about the guy, what he did. But as a journalist, I respect the freedom of the press, and I think we have to think about what we do to protect whistleblowers, because I think that I think people need to be safe to report things that are important for us, that need to be exposed to things that maybe our governments do that are not great. But I just find it interesting that Sweden's been very quiet on the issue. Swedish people have been very quiet on the issue. So my impression is that he kind of isn't the most well-liked figure here, and probably never was, but I just don't hear a huge passion from people about it anymore. So if you're Swedish and you totally disagree with me, would love to have you write that in the comments below. Prove me wrong. If you're new to the channel, love to have you subscribe. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Hello.